What's going on, you guys? It's Keinan Briggs, sports consultant and mentor. I was asked a question by a post-collegiate athlete. How do you balance training full-time and also making money, aka working? This question is going to be what all post-collegiate athletes ask, is how do you balance this? I'll be sharing some of the views of what I did, and looking back, actually I would have did things a little bit differently, but here's the process that I did and how it worked out for me. So the first thing that I had to do was write down a list of my needs and my wants. My wants were to have my own place, make a bunch of money, to have a great social life, and also have a nice car. When I went to my needs, it was a roof over my head and a training facility. That was really it. Didn't need the other stuff. However, I wanted some of those things. So I kind of got a gauge of what I needed and wanted. I pulled some things over and back and forth, but that's where I started first. Then the next step that I took was, now that I figured out what my needs are and what I actually need to do to train at the highest level, is I wrote down, okay, if I work full-time, here's my life. If I work part-time, here's my life. So when you work full-time, many cases, you're going to be having a job where you're sitting down, which is great. However, you're not as active, right? And you're working a certain amount of hours. When it comes to a full-time job, let's say you're working 8 hours. You have a 1 hour lunch. Then you have a, let's just go with 30-minute commute to work, 30 minutes home. So now you're looking at about 10 hours. Then let's add in 8 hours of sleep. Well, you have 6 hours a day during the week to train. That is not going to be what you need to work to train at the highest level possible, right? The next part is working part-time. This is a lot better because you have more of an open schedule. The issue is, with most part-time jobs, you're given your schedule, meaning you might be working in the morning, you might be working in the evening or daytime. Things fluctuate. Also, with that schedule fluctuating, so does your money. It's not as consistent. So the issue with that is, how do you keep a consistent training program? These things are also an issue. And the worst thing is, sometimes you got to work Saturdays and Sundays when you have track meets those days. So a lot of things that are happening there. So there's consistency versus lack of consistency, and you got to figure out which one works best for you and how are you going to make your training program consistent for yourself. The next thing is living minimalistically, right? What I mean by that is, let's say you do work part-time. Well, you want to have the least amount of overhead, meaning the least amount of responsibilities. The less responsibilities you have, the better. Why? Because you don't have to manage these things. You don't have to be accountable for these things. And also, if you do make these big gains in your performance, well, then you can up and leave. You can go overseas. And these are a lot of things that most athletes want to do. Want to travel, showcase their talent, and etc. The last thing is finding consistency. My specific consistency was, because I worked in the evenings, I was able to wake up and get to training. What I would do is I would wake up and I would eat real quick and I would hit the track or weight room immediately. I would get a lot of that stuff done. Why? Because I learned that life gets in the way. Sometimes friends call. Sometimes you want to train at 5 p.m. Well, 5 p.m. is where the gym gets really packed. A lot of machines aren't available. A lot of variables that happen. Sometimes you get a phone call that just messes up your whole day. Well, a lot of these things don't happen at 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So I would get a bulk of my workout done at that time. Also, when I would train on the track, well, training on the track during that 7, 8, 9 o'clock time frame, kids aren't at school yet, right? Or they are at school, but they're not doing certain things. So it's very important to figure out your training schedule and being consistent. Now, being inconsistent is actually a version of consistency if you keep that inconsistency going over and over. So as long as you kind of program yourself and you program your workouts, document a lot of these things, you'll be able to find where the flaws happen and correct those flaws. So to answer the question is, whenever you're dealing with balancing the work schedule and whatever else, you want to figure out what your needs and wants are, live simple, and also make the most amount of money you can in that time frame of doing the least amount. So entrepreneurship is actually one of the best ways to be able to make some money and train. The issue is it takes time to establish your niche or your brand. And so I'll make another video for that. But if you do that, you can charge whatever you want. You can literally charge $10,000 for one client for 1 hour if you wanted to with their specific knowledge. And I can show you ways to do that too. But in the meantime, hopefully this video was very supportive for you guys. You can do it. It will work out. Just put the idea down and then get started. Don't wait for all your ducks to get in a line or whatever the cliche phrase is. Just commit to something, try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else. All right, till next time.